I've found someone who actually makes me feel like a man, Maya. So, I'm divorcing you. I'm moving her in tonight, and well, you're going to my parents' old place. Or, if you want to keep being useful, you can stay here as the housekeeper. I figure you're already used to paying the bills anyway. I looked at Liam, my husband of 2 years, and then at my in-laws, who were currently smirking from the sofa of the house I had paid to renovate. The air in the living room felt stagnant, thick with the audacity of a man who had spent 36 months draining my soul and my bank account. "I don't think you understand," I said quietly, my voice devoid of the tears they were clearly expecting. "You want me to leave my house so your mistress can move in?" Liam laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "It's a family home, Maya, and since you're no longer family, you're just overhead. So, pack your bags. The real woman of the house will be here in an hour." They thought they were discarding a used-up asset. They didn't realize I had already initiated a hostile takeover. Before I show you the moment I turned their disposable wife plan against them, I need to know, have you ever been betrayed by someone you poured your entire life into? Drop a comment with where you're watching from. I'm reading every single one. Let's get back into it. My name is Maya. At 32, my life looked flawless on paper. I had climbed the corporate ladder with a ferocity that left my peers in the dust, securing a department manager position at a global logistics firm. I was the person people came to when they needed a crisis managed or a budget optimized. My professional life was a series of high-stakes wins and strategic triumphs. But my personal life? It was a barren desert. I had spent my 20s trading dating apps for industry certifications and late-night office hours. When a friend suggested a dinner party to get me back in the game, I was hesitant, but that's where I met Liam. He was the perfect contrast to the aggressive executives I dealt with daily. He was soft-spoken, had a gentle smile that reached his eyes, and seemed genuinely impressed by my ambition rather than intimidated by it. We shared a passion for classic cinema and quiet dinners. Within months, he confessed his love, and for the first time in a decade, I let my guard down. I was a manager of thousands, yet I failed to see that I was being managed myself. When he proposed, I didn't see a contract. I saw a sanctuary. I thought I was finally bringing someone into my world who would help me carry the weight of it. I didn't realize Liam wasn't looking for a partner. He was looking for a pension. The early days of my marriage were a masterclass in psychological grooming. When I first met Liam's parents, I felt like I had won the in-law lottery. His mother, Diane, hugged me with a warmth that felt like home, tearfully thanking me for taking such good care of her son. His father, Arthur, treated me with a gentle reverence, often praising my career. Unlike my friends' stories of mother-in-laws demanding they quit their jobs, Diane encouraged my ambition. "A woman with a career is a woman with strength," she'd say. I felt seen, respected, and, for the first time, truly supported. Liam moved into my apartment, and for 6 months, life was a blur of domestic bliss. I loved coming home to a husband who had dinner waiting and a genuine interest in my day. But the trap was already being set. One evening, over a glass of wine, Liam's demeanor shifted from cheerful to somberly concerned. "Maya, I've been visiting my parents lately, and they're struggling. The stairs are getting hard for them, and the house is falling apart. I'm an only child. I don't want them to end up in a facility." My heart went out to him. As a manager, I was hardwired to find solutions. When he suggested renovating their old property into a modern duplex, a two-family home where we could live together but maintain our privacy, it sounded like a strategic win. We can combine our resources, he argued. The renovation will be cheaper than buying a new place, and we'll be right there if they need us. He painted a picture of a multi-generational sanctuary. I was so blinded by the idea of a perfect family that I didn't question why we were moving to their territory instead of them moving to ours. I didn't question why they used every single room in that house for some reason or another, leaving no space for us unless I poured money into a total overhaul. I was so used to being the one in charge, the one who provided, that I didn't realize I was being steered toward a financial cliff. I agreed to the renovation, my head full of floor plans and my heart full of a future that didn't actually exist. The architectural plans were finalized, but the foundation of my marriage was about to crumble. Just as we were preparing to break ground on the renovation, Liam sat me down, looking more fragile than I'd ever seen him. He didn't meet my eyes. He stared at his trembling hands until I felt that familiar urge to step in and fix whatever was broken. "Maya, there's something I've been terrified to tell you," he whispered. "The renovation, it's more than just a house project now. My parents, they're in a hole, a deep one." He finally revealed the truth. Arthur and Diane weren't just struggling with stairs. They were drowning in $150,000 of high-interest debt. It was a staggering amount, one that made my head spin. Adding the $100,000 for the renovation, I was looking at a $250,000 liability. "Why didn't anyone mention this before the wedding?" I asked, my corporate brain screaming red flag. "They were ashamed," Liam choked out, a single tear escaping. "They didn't want to ruin our happiness. But the collectors are at the door now, Maya. I don't make enough to stop them, and my parents are living on a fixed pension. If we don't pay this, they lose everything. I know I'm asking for a miracle, but I love them so much. And I love you. I want us to have a home where we don't have to worry about them being on the street." He promised to pay me back little by little from his salary. He grabbed my hand, pleading for me to be the savior he knew I was. Looking back, I see the calculation in his eyes, but in that moment, I was a victim of my own empathy. I was a fixer, and I loved him. I saw a family in crisis and a husband who trusted me with his darkest secret. "Okay," I said, a decision I would regret for months. "I'll cover it." The relief on his face was instantaneous. Diane came over the next day, sobbing with gratitude, calling me her angel. They even suggested I transfer the money directly to a repayment account they controlled, so I wouldn't have to deal with the stress of the debt collectors. I agreed, blinded by their tears, never realizing that I wasn't paying off a debt. I was funding their lifestyle. For a year, I lived the life of a corporate martyr. I worked grueling overtime and cut my personal spending to zero, funneling every spare cent into the debt repayment and the renovation. Liam never seemed to have enough from his own paycheck to help, claiming his company was restructuring. I believed him. I even felt proud when I hit the $160,000 mark in total contributions. The illusion shattered on a Tuesday afternoon. A project at the office finished early, and I decided to surprise Liam with a home-cooked meal. I let myself into the newly renovated side of the duplex, moving quietly so as not to wake Arthur and Diane, who I assumed were napping. Then I heard the laughter. It was coming from the shared living space. "You really picked a winner with that one, Matthew," I heard Arthur's voice boom. He used Liam's middle name when they were alone. I can't believe a woman that smart fell for the debt story. I told you, Dad. Liam's voice was smug, devoid of the soft warmth he used with me. I just had to play the worried son routine. She's a manager. She can't resist a project. She's already wiped out 60,000 of the actual gambling arrears and paid for this entire renovation. And the best part? Diane chimed in, her voice dripping with malice. She thinks she's almost done. How much did you tell her was left? 90,000? Exactly, Liam chuckled. She'll slave away for another year, and once the final cent is paid, I'm serving the papers. I've already got Chloe waiting in the wings. She's younger, prettier, and now she'll have a renovated house to move into. Maya is just the bankroll. Once the bank is empty, we throw it away. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand gripping the grocery bag so hard the plastic bit into my skin. The kind in-laws, the loving husband, they were nothing but a pack of vultures picked clean by a gambling addiction they'd rebranded as a family crisis. My heart didn't break. It went cold. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I turned around, walked back out the front door, and sat in my car until the shaking stopped. They wanted a project? I was about to give them one they wouldn't survive. The next 3 months required a performance that would have earned me an Oscar. I didn't just pretend everything was fine. I became the most supportive, diligent wife Liam could imagine. Every morning, I kissed him goodbye while internally calculating the cost of his ruin. Every evening, I listened to Diane's fake praise while my lawyer was busy pulling the property records for the duplex. In executive mode, I realized my biggest leverage, the house title. During the renovation talks, I had insisted that, since I was paying the full $100,000 for the overhaul, the deed should be transferred into my name for tax purposes. At the time, Liam and his parents were so eager to get their hands on the cash that they didn't fight me. They assumed that as long as they were family, the name on the paper didn't matter. They were wrong. In the corporate world, the name on the paper is the only thing that exists. I then opened what I called my ghost account. I told Liam I was withdrawing $90,000 from my long-term savings to pay off the final balance of the family debt in one lump sum. I showed him a balance screen on my laptop, but it was just a separate account I had created to move my own money in a circle. Not a single cent went to the creditors. Instead, I let the actual debt collectors continue their hunt. If Liam and his parents wanted to gamble with the family's future, I was going to let the house win. I also began documenting everything. Every time Liam mentioned his working late, which I now knew was time spent with Chloe, I logged it. Every time he refused to show me his pay stubs, I recorded the conversation. I was building a dossier that would make an audit look like a children's book. I even doubled down on my investments. While they thought I was slaving away to pay for their mistakes, I was actually diversifying my own portfolio. I wasn't just working for a salary anymore. I was building the capital I would need to survive the fallout and take a profit. By the time I told Liam the debt was finally cleared, the trap was so tightly wound that they wouldn't even see the snap coming. I invited them all to a celebration dinner, knowing it would be the last meal they ever ate under my roof. The night of the debt clearance dinner was a masterclass in irony. I had set the table with the finest linens, candles flickering against the polished marble countertops I had paid for. Liam, Diane, and Arthur sat around the table, their faces glowing with a hunger that had nothing to do with the roast chicken I'd served. They were tasting freedom, or so they thought. "I have something to show you all," I said, my voice steady, betraying nothing of the disgust roiling in my stomach. I pulled out my laptop and opened the digital ledger for my savings account. As of 4 p.m. today, the final $90,000 transfer has been initiated. The Sterling family debt is officially 0. I turned the screen toward them. Liam's eyes widened, tracking the numbers with a predatory gleam. He let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for years. He leaned over and squeezed my hand, his voice thick with fake emotion. "Maya, you're a saint. I don't know how we can ever repay you for saving my parents' lives." "You already have, Liam," I replied, a double meaning that sailed right over his head. Diane actually began to weep. She reached across the table to grab my other hand. "You're more than a daughter-in-law. Maya, you're our guardian angel. To think, we can finally sleep without the fear of the phone ringing." Arthur raised his wineglass. "To Maya, the woman who made the Sterling name whole again." I watched them toast to their own brilliance. They were so convinced they had won that they didn't notice the lack of a bank confirmation receipt. They didn't notice that the transfer was simply a move between two accounts I owned. In their minds, they had already spent my money, sold my dignity, and moved the mistress into my bedroom. They laughed and celebrated, and I joined them, a ghost at my own execution, knowing that the freedom they were celebrating was actually the closing of their cage. The celebratory mood didn't last 48 hours. On Thursday evening, I walked into the living room to find Liam standing by the fireplace, his bags packed, and a strange woman, Chloe, I presumed, sitting on our designer sofa. She was barely 24, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Liam's monthly salary. Liam didn't even look up from his phone. "Maya, don't take this personally, but we're done. I've found someone who actually knows how to be a woman, not just a spreadsheet. I'm filing for divorce." I blinked, feigning the shock he expected. "Liam? What are you talking about? We just cleared the debt. We just finished the house." "Exactly," he said, finally looking at me with a cold, triumphant smirk. "The house is finished, the debt is gone, and I'm bored. I don't need a manager. I need a partner. Chloe and I are going to live here. Since you're so good at providing, I figured you could move back to your parents' place." Diane and Arthur walked in then, their faces devoid of the angel worship from 2 nights ago. "Actually, Matthew," Diane said, addressing her son, "if she wants to stay, she can. We'll need someone to keep the place clean and handle the groceries. We'll even give you a discount on rent, Maya. It's better than being homeless, right?" They laughed, a cruel, synchronized sound that echoed off the walls I had paid to paint. They truly believed they had stripped me of everything. They saw a broken woman. I saw 3 people who hadn't checked their legal standing in a decade. "So," I said, my voice dropping an octave into my boardroom tone, "you want me to stay as the help while you live in luxury on my dime?" "It's the least you can do for the family," Liam sneered. "Now, why don't you start by showing Chloe where the extra linens are?" I let the silence hang in the air for a moment, letting their arrogance reach its peak. Then, I sat down in the armchair, the one Liam always claimed was his throne, and crossed my legs. I didn't look like a woman who had just lost her marriage. I looked like a woman who had just closed a deal. "I have a counter-proposal," I said, my voice cutting through their laughter like a razor. "All of you need to leave. Now. And you can take Chloe and her expensive luggage with you." Liam rolled his eyes, gesturing to the room. "Maya, don't be hysterical. This is my parents' land. This is their house. You were just the guest who paid for the wallpaper." "Actually, Liam," I said, pulling a notarized folder from my bag and tossing it onto the coffee table, This is a copy of the deed of trust. Do you remember those tax documents you and your parents signed 6 months ago? The ones you didn't bother to read because you were too busy counting my cash? Arthur's face went from smug to ghostly pale. He lunged for the folder, his hands trembling as he flipped through the pages. I am the sole owner of this property, I continued. I paid for the renovation, and in exchange, you transferred the title to me. Legally, you are all at-will tenants, and as of 5 minutes ago, I have revoked your will to stay. You have 1 hour to pack what you can carry before the locksmith arrives to change the codes. You can't do this! Diane shrieked, her angel persona finally disintegrating into a mask of pure rage. We have nowhere to go! You paid our debts! You owe us a home! I leaned forward, my eyes locking onto Liam's. That's the second part of the surprise. Liam, you saw a balance of 0 on my laptop. You saw a transfer initiated. But in the world of finance, a transfer is only a reality when it hits the destination account. I never sent that $90,000 to your creditors. I moved it to a private trust in my name. The debt? It's still there. The collectors? They're likely on their way here right now, because the lump sum they were promised never arrived. The room went deathly silent. Liam's phone began to vibrate on the table, a private number. He didn't pick it up. He didn't have to. We all knew who it was. I paid $60,000 of your actual debt as a deposit over the last year, I said. That money is gone. Consider it the price I paid to watch you all fail. But the remaining $90,000? That's still your burden. And since I'm selling this house to a developer next week, you won't even have a roof to hide under when they come to collect. Liam looked at Chloe, who was already standing up, her face twisted in disgust. She wasn't looking for a man with a mountain of debt and a vengeful ex-wife. She was looking for a meal ticket, and the kitchen was officially closed. Maya, please, Liam stammered, his bravado vanishing. I apologize. I was confused. We can work this out. I'm not a spreadsheet, remember? I said, standing up and walking toward the door. I'm a manager, and I've just finished liquidating your assets. Get out. The fallout was swifter than a market crash. I didn't just kick them out. I erased their footprint. I put the renovated duplex on the market the very next day. Because of its prime location and the high-end 2-family configuration I'd designed, it sold in less than a week for $200,000. After accounting for the $100,000 renovation cost and the $60,000 I'd lost to their initial debt, I walked away with a $40,000 net profit. But I wasn't done. My lawyer filed a civil suit to recover the $60,000 I had paid under fraudulent pretenses. I also served Liam with divorce papers that included a heavy demand for alimony and damages for his admitted infidelity. As for the happy family, their life became a nightmare. Without my income to mask the bleeding, their remaining $90,000 gambling debt ballooned with interest. Liam's mistress, Chloe, dumped him before he even finished packing his car. Arthur and Diane were forced back into a cramped, dilapidated rental on the edge of town, their fixed pension now being garnished to pay back the creditors I had stopped holding at bay. I received one final, desperate voicemail from Liam, begging for a repayment plan of his own. I didn't even listen to the whole message. I simply forwarded the audio to my legal team and blocked the number. I had spent a year as their bank. I was now their debt collector. I'm 33 now, and my life is once again my own. I still work as a department manager, but I no longer trade my peace for the appearance of a perfect family. This experience taught me a brutal but necessary lesson. Empathy without boundaries is just self-destruction. I've taken the profit from the house sale and invested it into a private portfolio, one that Liam and his vultures will never touch. I'm learning to trust again, but with an executive's eye for due diligence. I don't look for soft partners anymore. I look for people with integrity that shows up in their actions, not just their tears. If you've ever been used for your kindness or your success, let this be your sign to stop being the fixer for people who are happy to break you. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a like if you believe in standing up for your worth. Now, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think I was too harsh by leaving them with the debt? Or did the punishment fit the crime? Have you ever had to stage a hostile takeover of your own life to escape toxic people? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'm rooting for every one of you building your own empire. See you in the next one.